Welcome to the Sooners 360 Recruiting Podcast, a podcast for OU recruiting fans by Sooners 360. Each week we catch you up on the latest in OU recruiting news and provide opinions and evaluations on all things OU football recruiting. I'm Chris Mason, lead recruiting analyst for Sooners 360. This podcast is now sponsored by Sooners 360 on Patreon. To support this podcast, please go to patreon.com/Sooners360817 and click subscribe. It's only $2 a month, and there's also a free trial option, and that's where I'm posting all of my regular recruiting content. Also, this podcast is now part of the Believe podcast family, every team, every topic, everywhere. This is episode 98, Unofficial Visitors Return to Norman. So we will obviously start where we always start, which is commitment news. And the commitment news here is more that we have no commitment news, either good or bad, with the players that are kind of out there for OU. Although I'm kind of thinking one player is definitely trending in a definite location. We'll have an update from that from last week's pod. So we'll start with the ongoing saga, and that's probably unfair to Andrew Babalola. He's probably just trying to decide where he goes to college, and it's not really his fault that he's having a hard time breaking the deadlock, if there is a deadlock, between the various schools. All I can tell you is that the general conventional wisdom out in the recruiting industry this week was that Babalola was supposed to commit somewhere, and everyone thought that would be Michigan. So it's been crickets from Babalola. We have not had an announcement of an announcement or Babalola tipping off some schools that he's made his decision and is about to go public, because that information is going to link pretty heavily from either Auburn, Stanford, OU, or even Michigan. The odd thing in this is if you've listened to the most recent Sooner Scoop recruiting content, either on YouTube or their podcasts, Josh McCuistion has said that all signs seem to point to Michigan, but Michigan doesn't seem that confident. So things are in a strange place. It makes me wonder if he might take an unofficial visit to Michigan or Auburn or OU to kind of break the apparent deadlock. But no signs that those have been scheduled. None of those schools are saying any of that. And, Babalola keeps his own confidence, doesn't do a lot of interviews. So I have a distinct feeling I may have an update for you guys over the weekend. That's the exact same. No change. I do think the longer this goes, maybe it points to OU's efforts making a big difference. We'll see. I have talked to a source, and that source tells me that obviously Auburn's in the picture, and Auburn's, as we'll talk about in a minute, dropping money like drunken sailors at Fleet Week in New York in their NIL game, and probably in other ways too, to enhance their NIL game. But, I've been told that OU has a good NIL offer for Babalola if he wants to be a Sooner. I'm not sure it'll be an Auburn offer, but it'll probably surpass whatever Stanford was going to be able to scrounge together, and probably will match or exceed whatever Michigan is putting out there. OU will go all the way to get Babalola added to this class. And obviously the O-line woes from the Temple game just reinforce that OU needs a fifth offensive lineman in the class. They need tackle depth. And adding Babalola to the four players already committed would be a huge win, both in depth numbers, talent numbers, but also just sort of from a marketing standpoint, for lack of a better term. Christian Jones has been the other guy we've been talking about for, it seems like, weeks on end. I think we're about to have a break in the Christian Jones decision process. He did attend the UTEP game. He's going to the Colorado game. So that's back-to-back Husker football 2 weeks in a row. I don't see how this isn't trending towards a Nebraska commit. I think OU's probably getting that same sense. But we'll see. If Nebraska's going to land him, a big win against Coach Prime this weekend and then a big push to close out makes a lot of sense, I think. But obviously, if he keeps drifting, OU gets him on campus for Tennessee, maybe something can get worked out there. But I don't think he's going to be undecided 2 weeks from today. Then we have the Elijah Melendez news, the linebacker from Florida that OU really likes. Zach Alley has made him a focus. Tried to get him on campus a couple of times. Finally got him on campus for his official visit. He finally flipped from Miami. He did it while on his Auburn unofficial visit. He hasn't committed to Auburn yet, and that visit is now, 6 days in the rearview, 5 days in the rearview mirror. So you kind of wonder what he's waiting for. Now, he could pull the trigger at any minute now. Some sense maybe this is him using Auburn as an MIL to raise the MIL stakes. Doesn't want to go to Auburn. He's trying to use them to raise the stakes at Miami or maybe Oklahoma. Don't mistake it. He's a really talented guy. If there was a reasonable NIL deal that OU could use to land him, I think OU would definitely land him. It would be a bulk up the linebacker class considerably, at a future star at linebacker. OU's got good linebacker depth, but Melendez is 2025. If he sat for a year, by 2026, quite a few of the guys that will have matriculated out of OU. He's out of eligibility, made NFL early entries, just things along those lines. Maybe OU loses a player to the portal themselves at the linebacker position. So that's the Melendez story. Not verbal to Auburn, but as I said, Auburn is spending money like they're going out of business, like everything must go. And I think they think the NIL business is about to get salary capped. So they're going to burn as much cash as possible before any restrictions come into play. So that's Melendez, 2025 name. So I'm going to go with 3 new names for 2025 to track. OU coaches are following them on Twitter, and that's about the only indication we have until they make an offer. The first one is Caleb Burns, a linebacker from Texas. He's 6'1", 225, a Baylor commit. He's getting a lot of new offers. He's really good on film, very physical, athletic. Would be a good linebacker addition. Would be a good linebacker addition for the Sooners if they wanted to get involved. I could see them easily making an offer and bringing him in for a visit. Then we have the most interesting name player with a little bit of a weird backstory. His name is Seven Cloud. He is from Georgia. He's at Butler Community College. Played high school ball in Georgia. He's got several big-time SEC offers. I think UGA probably wants him back as well. But he would be an interesting potential replacement for DeJoun Terry if OU wanted to go that route. The limited footage I found of him in high school is pretty good. He's 6'3", 6'4", 320. And I could see OU getting heavily involved with him pretty quickly because of Brent's. OU and Brent have very strong Kansas JUCO connections. The third name that's flying around the internet that OU coaches are following is Toby Hostrup from Maid Creek. He's a defensive end. He's 6'4", 240. He's claiming a 10,700 meter time, which for a guy that big would be crazy good. It appears to be this is his first year playing football. I don't have a full background on him. what I can pull from various tweets and other information is that he previously lived overseas, lived in London, although Hastrup would seem to be a Dutch name, but that doesn't really mean anything. His first game footage is pretty impressive. He's claiming 5 sacks. I saw at least 3 legit sacks and several half sacks, depending upon how you're counting sacks these days. But he's got a huge frame, huge wingspan, and he flies off the ball. So checking his Twitter stream, he's probably got like 12 to 15 offers in the last 24 hours. So if OU wants to get involved, they need to get involved pretty quickly. And I think they need another defensive end in this class. I've been pretty upfront about that ever since the loss of Ogbo and some other players. Just Shield Knight and CJ Nixon aren't getting it done at defensive end. OU needs another pass rusher, edge rusher in this class. And Hastrup would certainly fit that bill. He's raw, obviously, but OU's got depth so they could redshirt him and develop him up. So they've got the depth. They just need to continue adding players with talent at defensive end, just like everywhere else. I talked about that in the last pod about why recruiting matters. Keep adding players, keep adding depth, keep building classes where you stack class upon class. It increases your ability to handle injuries, and it also allows your development process to keep pushing guys into your depth chart. So that's the news in terms of 2025. I got another 2025 name to talk about, but I'm going to talk about 6 players who are confirmed as unofficial visitors for the Houston game. There'll probably be some more added, and probably some OU verbals will come up, and we'll have more players social media traffic-wise to track. But right now, Thursday night, these 6 guys have confirmed on Twitter that right now they're planning to make the game. Obviously, things change, but it's a nighttime kickoff, so it gives OU a chance to get players on campus. Thank you, SEC, for ending the 12 o'clock kickoff nonsense for early games for OU, which OU could use to recruit. So the first player is a 2025 linebacker. His name is Agape Lawrence from Frisco Emerson. He's 5'11", 215. That's what he's listed at. He has some insane production to start his season. In that first game, he had 17 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and he blocked an extra point. Sounds like he's going to be traveling up to Norman with his teammate and OU verbal commitment, cornerback Malik Hawkins. I don't know if this is an offer, or maybe OU will try and use their preferred walk-on program here in a similar way they did with E.J. Hutton. He's an interesting player on film. I'm afraid 5'11" might be generous, but he's physical. He's making plays all over the field, and he looks good in space. So there's something there. The next name I mentioned 2 weeks ago as a player who received a new offer from OU, it is 2027 defensive tackle Jalen Brewster from Cedar Hill, who's listing himself at 6'4", around 277. He's saying 277, so it's a pretty oddly specific number. So we'll use that number. His freshman year, he played running back at like 6'2", 255. But apparently he's outgrown the running back position, and they've moved him to defensive tackle. All I know is Todd Bates is not offering any 2027 kids at defensive tackle unless they have insane production and potential ability, sorry. Bates isn't offering running back to defensive tackle transitions unless he's got a huge reason why, unless some coaches have called him to tell him you need to get involved with this guy immediately. So he played his first game at defensive tackle. There's no huddle footage uploaded yet. But his stat line, according to an article I saw in a Twitter feed article mentioning a number of players in his area, players of the week type thing. Everybody's got listing stats. And his game one stat line at defensive tackle was 10 tackles, 6 tackles for loss with 3 sacks versus Midlothian. And on some level, Midlothian has Noah Best on that offensive line. So, they at least have one Division I 2026 OU offer on their offensive line. So I don't think Midlothian is just completely inept on the offensive line. So I'm hoping that footage gets loaded. We get some early footage of Jalen, but he's visiting OU, just got an offer. And again, if that stat line is real and indicates his potential at defensive tackle, I'm having a hard time imagining Jalen Brewster is not about to blow up and be some kind of top 100 type player. Even if he's only 6'3", 277, he had a lean frame playing running back last year at 255. Wasn't like he was Jamar Toombs or Javorsky Lane, just a big overweight fullback who's got speed. He was a lean looking big athlete. So the next name is a 2026 linebacker. His name's Ryder Garcia. He's from Denton Guyer. He's listed at 6'3", 225 in multiple places. That looks real. It's good to get another 2026 linebacker name to watch, because for right now, 2026 is loaded with players at almost every position but linebacker. The only linebacker name is Ja'Cory Smith, the teammate of Omarion Robinson. And Ja'Cory is more of a will backer. So Garcia on film looks like a Mike. He's big, really big frame, powerful. I just watched his highlights against Toledo, and they're really good. He's tackles for losses, very productive, involved both in coverage, stopping the run. So just a player to watch. Obviously, OU has Denton Guyer connections. So if he's truly a player, and I could see an OU offer happening soon based upon his junior film. And that would be good because we need some more regional linebacker targets. Another 2026 player visiting is Grant Wise. I don't know too much about Grant. He's 6'4", 310 pounds. That's what he's listed at. He is a composite 4-star right now, and he has a top 150 ranking from 3 services. He's visiting colleges around, coming back to Norman for the second time. It's an interesting addition to the offensive guard prospects OU has. So this is a nice addition, nice visit for the Houston game for OU. The next 2026 kid is safety athlete Keenan Harris. Cheetah, maybe. He's from St. Louis, Missouri. He's listed at 6'1", 200, 195, depending upon what service you're looking at. He's got a top 150 ranking from Rivals, 5.9 on their system. I watched his film. It's really good. He's a very good athlete. Is he a safety or a linebacker? That's probably the only real question I have there. OU has a lot of safety prospects that they're working, so it's a very talented safety group for OU right now. And Harris would fit in there, but again, he could fit in at will linebacker down the road, or yet again fit in as sort of a hybrid linebacker safety type that OU and this coaching staff definitely seems to like. We saved this name for the end because he's the highest rated guy visiting. And so this is 2027 wide receiver, Ethan Booby Feaster from DeSoto. He is He's a potential 5-star wide receiver. He is right now a top 10 player nationally for 2027 by 2 services. He's the number one wide receiver according to one of these services. He's about 6'1", 175. He's already getting that rep as the next great sort of Texas wide receiver. And the CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Njimba Smith kind of category. He seems to love Emmett Jones, and obviously Emmett Jones. If you want to get really nitpicky, the only knock on Emmett Jones's recruiting, and I'm not sure it's really that relevant, is that he hasn't gotten a 5-star wide receiver. And some people only mention this because Texas has picked up 2 5-star wide receivers in Jamie French and Lockett. Personally, I think Cortez Mills, if OU can keep him, and Elijah Thomas are just as talented as those guys. It's just, I don't think they're really like elite 5-star guys, the way Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State is, the way Julio Jones was. Guys, they're really good-looking wide receivers, but I don't think there's any massive distance there. But right now, Feaster's been on OU's radar for like 2 years. That's how good he was. We were getting buzz from him as he was about to enter high school. So he should be on campus. The only downside here is, as most OU recruiting fans know, or will be told to you by any number of recruiting experts who can pull up the information and know the history there, OU doesn't get DeSoto kids traditionally. They just don't. It's not a school that sends kids to OU. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if there's a coaching staff thing, community, but OU has not really broken through that force field around DeSoto. But I think if anyone's going to break through, it's Emmett Jones because of his connections in Texas high schools. And Emmett Jones is on a heater in wide receiver recruiting. Obviously, 2027 is far out. But OU's already got Zane Rowe and one potential 5-star commit. So anything's possible. And like I said, he really likes Emmett Jones. So we'll see what happens there. The fact he's coming to Norman is a massive positive for OU's wide receiver recruiting in general. I mean, he's the number 1 wide receiver in the country if you go by on 3. So that's, he's like the number 7 player in the nation. That's not nothing. So a big addition in terms of someone who should be on campus. Like I said, these 5 names have all indicated they're going to be in Norman. Travel plans, etc. We know that story from, over and over again. So we'll see. Obviously, one topic I didn't hit is Cortez Mills is allegedly going to Nebraska for the Colorado game. We'll see if that visit actually happens. I know some folks have been like, well, that's kind of a long trip for him to organize and to try and put together. But just remember, if he goes to Nebraska for this game, it's probably an official visit. He's not going to have to organize anything. Nebraska is arranging, airfare, accommodations, and the whole 9 yards. So I wouldn't imagine if he makes it to Lincoln, that's an unofficial. I'd imagine that's an official visit. How OU responds to that, I think will be interesting to see. I don't. Right now, Nebraska sites are listing him, and they say he's confirmed that. But this is one of these situations where he could. I've seen this 1,000 times. Kids say yes, committed elsewhere. They're coming, and then the coaching staff that they're committed to calls them late and says, "Don't go to this. Don't go there," and the kids end up not taking the visit. So we'll have to see if we can get some social media confirmation of what Cortez Mills actually did. So everyone, that's a short update. Finally had some recruiting news to talk about in terms of new targets for 2025, possibly, and visitors for the game. Guys that are definitely interested in OU, guys OU definitely wants on campus. So thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and don't forget to leave a rating. Also, once again, please visit patreon.com/Sooners360817 and subscribe for more recruiting content. The Patreon service directly supports this podcast, keeps it going, and keeps it free. So please give us a chance and subscribe. Other than that, enjoy OU versus Houston on Saturday night, and we'll have an update post game on recruiting and maybe a little bit of what we saw during the game. Thanks, everyone.